It was one of those bitterly cold evenings where the wind cut through even the thickest coats, and the city streets were bustling with people eager to get home. Among them was Sarah, a woman in her early 30s, who had just finished her shift at a small cafe downtown. She wasn't wealthy by any means, just getting by like everyone else, but she had a habit of noticing things others overlooked. That night, as she walked past a neighborhood grocery store, something caught her eye. Near the entrance, a family stood huddled together, a mother, a father, and 2 young children, their coats thin against the biting cold. They weren't panhandling, nor did they look like they wanted to ask for help. Instead, they were whispering among themselves, their faces filled with quiet distress. Sarah slowed her steps, pretending to adjust the scarf around her neck as she observed them. The mother clutched a small handful of cash, counting it again and again, her lips pressed into a thin line. The father, standing beside her, glanced toward the store's entrance, exhaling a heavy sigh. The children, no older than 6 or 7, shifted on their feet, their wide eyes darting between their parents and the brightly lit aisles inside. Sarah had seen enough to know what was happening. They were struggling, probably debating whether they had enough money to buy what they needed. Maybe they were trying to make the impossible choice between food and another pressing expense. Her heart squeezed at the thought. She hesitated for a moment, debating whether she should step in. What if they got embarrassed? What if they refused? But then the mother's shoulders slumped, and she turned away from the store, stuffing the cash back into her pocket. That was it. Sarah couldn't just walk away. "Excuse me," she called out, stepping forward. The family turned to look at her, startled. Up close, she could see the exhaustion on their faces, the way worry had etched itself into their expressions. The mother straightened, her protective instincts kicking in. "Yes," Sarah smiled, hoping to put them at ease. "I couldn't help but notice you were about to go inside. If you don't mind, I'd really love to help." The father's brow furrowed. "Oh no, that's not necessary. We're just—" He trailed off, his voice uncertain. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet. "Please," she said gently. "I know times can be tough. Let me get your groceries." No strings attached. For a moment, no one spoke. The mother blinked rapidly, as if holding back tears. The father exchanged a look with her, searching for the right words. And then, to Sarah's relief, the woman nodded. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Sarah smiled and led them inside. She insisted they pick out everything they needed. No cutting corners, no second guessing. The children's faces lit up when their parents hesitantly placed fresh fruit and bread into the cart. Sarah even snuck in a few treats for the kids, watching as their excitement pushed aside their earlier worry. By the time they reached the checkout, the mother turned to Sarah, her eyes shining with gratitude. "We don't even know your name." "Sarah," she said with a small laugh. "Just Sarah." The father extended his hand. "I'm Mark. This is my wife, Emily. And our kids, Leo and Sophie." Sarah shook his hand warmly. "It's really nice to meet you all." As she paid for their groceries, Emily wiped at her eyes. "We've been going through a rough patch. This means more than you know." Sarah simply squeezed her hand. "I'm just glad I could help." They exchanged goodbyes outside the store, and Sarah watched as the family walked off, carrying their bags, their steps a little lighter than before. She didn't expect anything in return. She hadn't done it for recognition or gratitude. She just wanted to make someone's night a little easier. That was supposed to be the end of it. But Sarah had no idea that months later, the very same family would come back into her life with a surprise that would change everything. Life went on for Sarah as usual. She continued working at the cafe, serving customers their morning coffee, chatting with regulars, and managing the everyday struggles that came with making ends meet. The moment outside the grocery store had stayed with her, but she never expected to see the family again. To her, it was just a small act of kindness, one of those fleeting moments that touched a person's heart and then faded into memory, but fate had other plans. One late afternoon, a few months later, Sarah was wiping down the cafe counter when the bell above the door jingled. She glanced up, ready to greet the next customer, but then her breath caught. Standing there, with hesitant smiles and familiar faces, were Mark, Emily, Leo, and Sophie. For a moment, Sarah wondered if they even remembered her. But as Emily stepped forward, her eyes filled with warmth. She knew they hadn't forgotten. "I can't believe we found you," Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. "We've been looking for you for weeks." Sarah frowned slightly, confused. "Me? Why?" Mark chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "We owe you so much more than just a thank you." Sarah opened her mouth to protest, but Emily reached for her hand, gripping it gently. "You didn't just help us that night, Sarah. You changed everything." Sarah blinked. "What do you mean?" Emily exhaled, as if trying to find the right words. "That night, we were at our lowest. Mark had just lost his job, and we were behind on bills. The groceries you bought lasted us until he found work again. It gave us time we didn't have. And because of you, we didn't have to choose between feeding our kids and keeping the lights on." Sarah's heart swelled. She had hoped she had made a difference, but hearing it put into words was something else entirely. "I'm so glad things got better for you," she said sincerely. Mark nodded. "They did. I found a new job a few weeks after that night. Better pay, better hours. And Emily, well, she's been working on something too." Emily exchanged a glance with her husband before turning back to Sarah. "We wanted to find you because we have something to give you, but it's not something we can just hand over here. Will you come with us?" Sarah hesitated. She had never expected anything in return, and she wasn't sure what they meant. But looking at their hopeful faces, she found herself nodding. "Okay," she said slowly. "Where are we going?" Mark grinned. "You'll see." Sarah finished her shift, grabbed her coat, and followed them outside. The kids chatted excitedly as they led her down the street, turning corner after corner until they reached a small storefront. The windows were covered, and there was a sign hanging on the door that read, "Opening soon." Sarah furrowed her brow. "What is this?" Emily reached for her hand again, squeezing it. "A new beginning." She pushed open the door, leading Sarah inside. The space was small but cozy, with warm lighting and shelves neatly arranged along the walls. The air smelled faintly of fresh wood and something sweet, like the promise of something new. "I don't understand," Sarah admitted, looking around. Emily smiled, her excitement barely contained. "It's a bakery. My bakery. For years, I've dreamed of opening one, but we never had the chance. Never had the stability or money to even think about it. But after Mark found work, I finally started saving. And then something incredible happened. Mark stepped forward. I told my new boss about what you did for us that night, and he was so moved by it that he helped us get in touch with people who could help. Long story short, we got the funding to finally make this happen." Sarah stared at them, still trying to process what she was hearing. "That's amazing," she said softly. "But why did you want me to see this?" Emily reached into her pocket and pulled out a key. She held it out to Sarah. "Because it's yours too." Sarah's eyes widened. "What?" Emily laughed, tears brimming in her eyes. "We want you to be a part of this. We wouldn't be here without you, Sarah. And we don't just mean that night at the grocery store. You showed us kindness when we felt invisible. You reminded us that good people still exist. And now we want to pass that kindness forward. with you by our side." Sarah's hands trembled as she took the key, overwhelmed by the weight of their words. She had never expected anything in return for what she did that night. She had never imagined that a simple act of generosity could ripple out into something so life-changing. Tears blurred her vision as she looked at the family before her, at the space they had built from hope, resilience, and gratitude. And in that moment, she realized that sometimes the kindness we give to others has a way of finding its way back when we least expect it and in ways we could never have imagined. Sarah stood there, gripping the key in her hand, feeling the weight of everything Mark and Emily had just told her. It didn't feel real. A part of her wanted to protest, to insist that she hadn't done anything special, that she had only done what any decent person would have. But looking into their eyes, she could see how much this meant to them. This wasn't just about repaying a favor. It was about something deeper. Still, doubt crept in. "I don't know anything about running a bakery," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Emily laughed softly. "Neither did I when I started. We'll figure it out together." Mark nodded. "We're not asking for anything you don't want to give, Sarah. We just want you to be a part of this, however that looks for you." Sarah looked around the shop again, taking in the warmth of the space, the fresh start they had carved out of hardship. It was more than just a business. It was a symbol of everything they had overcome, and now they were offering her a place in it. A lump formed in her throat as she exhaled slowly. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady. "I'd love to be a part of this." The moment she said it, Sophie and Leo cheered, running up to hug her, their small arms wrapping tightly around her waist. Emily's eyes shimmered with emotion, and Mark clapped a hand on her shoulder, grinning. Over the next few weeks, Sarah found herself immersed in a world she never expected. She spent hours in the bakery, learning the ins and outs of the business, rolling up her sleeves to help paint, arrange furniture, and even experiment with baking. Emily was a natural, her passion for the craft shining through in every loaf of bread and delicate pastry she made. And Sarah, despite her initial hesitation, discovered a joy in the work she never knew she was missing. Opening day arrived faster than any of them expected. The bakery, now named Second Chances, was buzzing with excitement. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers gathered, eager to support the new business. Sarah stood by Emily's side, watching as customers filtered in, the smell of fresh bread filling the air. Then, just as the rush began to settle, someone unexpected walked in, an older woman with kind eyes and a familiar presence. Sarah's breath caught. It was a woman she had helped years ago, long before she met Emily and Mark, a woman she had once given her last few dollars to. On a rainy evening, when she had seen her struggling to buy a meal, she had never seen her again after that night. But now, here she was, standing in the middle of Sarah's new beginning. The woman smiled knowingly. "You may not remember me," she said softly. "But I remember you." Sarah swallowed, emotions swelling in her chest. The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a small worn note. "You once gave me kindness when I needed it the most. I never forgot that. And now it looks like kindness found its way back to you." Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. In that moment, she realized something powerful. Life had a way of circling back, of connecting people through unseen threads of compassion. What she had once given freely had returned to her in ways she could have never imagined. As she stood there, surrounded by new friends, old memories, and the comforting hum of a fresh beginning, she understood something she would carry with her forever. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness could set off a chain of events that change lives. And in the end, that was the greatest gift of all.